away we go to civilization, Las Cruces, New Mexico. Las Cruces, New Mexico is the second largest city in New Mexico, and it's not that big. It has a little over 100,000 people in it. Who's old enough to remember gas wars? Gas wars, at least in my day, gas might get down to 29 cents or 28 cents a gallon. But the usual price was somewhere between 33 to 35 cents a gallon for the longest time. They do a good job getting the highways nice and clear. That may look like a forest fire starting. Ooh, freak out, but don't. See? Controlled burn. He's posted with his name and phone number. I don't know that boy personally, the name on the controlled burn sign, but I remember when he was born. Boy, getting old. People who you remember when they were born, growing up, and now they're grown-up people with kids of their own. And a grown kid, now his kid does fells trees, tree cutting. Winter with snow on the ground is the time to do a controlled burn. Not in the spring when it's sandstorm season and everything's dry as a bone, the way the Forest Service did it, that burned up so much of New Mexico. Now look, see that white mountain there? That's Sierra Blanca over in Ruidoso. That's where Ruidoso is. When I was growing up and into the 1980s, there was snow on Sierra Blanca all year round, including in the summer. Look just like that. And in the winter, like where we are now, there was even more snow on Sierra Blanca. I mean, it was just covered in snow. Anyway, Las Cruces, for anybody's thinking about moving someplace to New Mexico, I do not recommend Las Cruces because of the air pollution. They get the air pollution from El Paso. El Paso's air pollution with the wind direction and whatnot just blows straight up and slams Las Cruces with so much air pollution that they rank just as bad as El Paso for cities of their size. I mean, Las Cruces is much smaller. I know people who have moved to Las Cruces from other areas of the country, much cleaner air areas of the country, and when they move to Las Cruces, all of a sudden they've got asthma attacks, or spots on their lungs, somebody else's lung spots, and just, you know. But otherwise, it's a nice little college town. University, New Mexico State University, the main campus. Well, looky there, do you see it? Yeah, that's a coyote. Hi, coyote. Hi. Oh, look at him up there. I wonder if the, yes, that's Wile E. Coyote. Buddy, that's enough. I wonder if he's the same coyote who was trying to get you to come outside the other day. I went outside and told him off in no uncertain terms. The only other time I've had a difficulty with a coyote, and the coyote hasn't been back since I told him off. My sweet, precious, beloved little Jack was still alive. And I was walking Jack. I always walked Jack on a leash because I just didn't trust that he wouldn't run off. I found him lost. Anyway, long story short, Jack and Buddy and I were walking in the neighborhood, and at the corner of my eye, I spot something in the forest that's paralleling us. And then I stop for a second, it stops, and I keep walking. I look up, it was Coyote. The Coyote was paralleling us, watching. I turned us, they didn't understand why I cut the walk short. I turned us right back around and headed right back to the cabin. Coyote paralleled us in the forest. Put the dogs in the cabin, and they took the biggest stick I have and went outside. Coyote had followed us, and he had perched himself right behind the cabin. Not immediately behind it, but in the forest behind it. And I walked back out there and banged my stick on the ground numerous times and screamed bloody murder at that coyote. The coyote was hiding behind a tree and would peek out and look at me and then hide. I banged my stick over and over again and screamed my head off at him, telling him to get the H-E-double-L out. He's not allowed. He's not going to mess with my dogs. He messes with my dogs, he's got me to contend with. It just really told him off. I kept it up until he took off and ran, which took a while. It's like 5 minutes. And then he took off and ran. Well, I didn't have any more problems with him till the other day. Yeah, here we go. See that beautiful view? Anyway, the folks in Colorado, I was watching their YouTube channel this morning as I was getting ready. And they live in an off-grid, passive solar cabin they built. They don't say where they are in Colorado, but they say they're at 7,500 feet. They're in the forest. And they have been slammed with snowstorms. They had a 10-day snowstorm, and now they just, today's video about they had a 10-inch snowstorm. They're just getting slammed up there. See, that's further north, lower elevation, but they're in an area where, boy, I remember, Colorado can get slammed with one snowstorm after another. This is one of the reasons why I just love Cloudcroft. And of course, if the snow for Cloudcroft is too much for you, you can always go to Ruidoso, which is at 6,900, 7,000 feet. But you won't get nearly as much snow, but you'll still have a true winter. There's a 4-season climate in Ruidoso. And Ruidoso is not living rural. They have a hospital right there in the village. They have several grocery stores, banks, vehicle repair shops, everything you would need they have there. You would never have to leave the mountain if you didn't want to. They even have, but they don't have Home Depot or Lowe's. That's in Alamogordo. But they do have a True Value Hardware. They have Ace Hardware. They have, what's the other one? Well, they have hardware stores. Now, it may seem like I'm going fast, but I'm not. I'm going 44 miles an hour. All right, Ruidoso is where my previous next door neighbor moved to. I really liked them both, that couple. They were in their 50s. They were from El Paso, and they bought the cabin next door after Polly Buck and Mildred, they all passed away. They were my long-term neighbors. I just loved them. All very elderly. Ron, I love them. They sold, and their cabin changed hands a few times because I could hear it. The wives of the family Here's not to be when you come up rural. Don't expect things to work like it does in the city. I could hear screaming inside. The wife screaming about the water wasn't on, or the water had frozen, and she's screaming at her husband. Then, of course, we'd have power outages when there would be something happening. And I could hear that same woman bellow at her husband about what's happened to the freaking lights. Scream, scream, scream. Poor guy. They sold like within a year. Rural life was not for them. He eventually sold because the wild animals freaked him out, scared him to death. But he was in his like late 60s, early 70s. His wife came up. She was so cute. She reminded me of the mother in the Golden Girls. The Golden Girls TV show, and there was the mother. She looked a lot like that mother. She talked a great deal like that mother. She was same short stature and the same attitude as far as speaks her mind. Her husband's name was Richard. I don't remember her name, but I can remember they'd had me over to their cabin for something. I was already widowed, Roy had already passed. And she was just going on about, I don't know why he likes it up here. Why do you like it up here? I mean, nobody's around. There's all these wild animals. She didn't like the wild animals either. We saw a cougar the other day. They could kill us. And something about the floor of their cabin. She said, this floor is wobbly. And who brings a little refrigerator like that up here? They had a small refrigerator. I mean, real small. Well, I would call a dorm refrigerator. Of course, they could put in a bigger one, but whatever. And she said to me, I see you leave and you go out and hike in the forest. Aren't you scared? Aren't you scared? You can't do anything up here except stay inside. It's not safe to go out there. She was cute. I'd just laugh and I'd say, no, I'm not scared. I've been hiking up in these mountains since I was a little girl. What? Your mother let you? And I said, well, that was in the 60s. Kids went out and played all day. Well, that's true. She was older than I was. She could remember when kids played all day, but she lived in the city. She's from El Paso. Lived in the city, where it was safer. At any rate, after coming up with her husband to their cabin for a couple of months, she was nice. I never heard her screaming inside like I heard the previous people. But then she said goodbye. I was up one weekend, same weekend they were, and she said, I probably won't see you ever again because I'm never coming back up here. She'd been up about 5 days with her husband. And I said, really, are you all right? I thought maybe she had a health issue or something, because the altitude, a lot of people, once they get really old, they can't take the altitude. And she said, no, my health's just fine, but I just don't like it up here. I don't like staying in the cabin all day. And I said, well, you could go hike with me if you would like. We could get killed. Bears, cougars. Oh, look at this. Look at that person. Now that's how people get killed. Let's see, what am I doing? I'm doing 43 miles an hour. The speed limit on this road is 45 miles an hour. I'm going 43, and he just went around a yellow line that said he's not to pass, no passing zone, and he just went around. What's your hurry? That's a good way to get killed on this mountain. Or kill someone else. You don't have the right to kill anybody else. At any rate, the little lady. Oh, here comes somebody else. Probably his friend. Look, they're driving the same vehicle. Here comes somebody else. Again, passing in no passing zones. I am going 43 miles an hour. The speed limit is 45. They're probably all three together, or at least the first two cars are together. People need to chill. She never did come back. She was too scared. I mean, she would stay on their deck. They had a deck. She would stay there. But she wouldn't even be out, you know, walking the neighborhood lanes. Oh no. These people are ridiculous. I'm going 45 now. Look at this person. At least they're in a passing lane. They'd been there 5 days, and some of that, you know, I wasn't up there, but there were some other people who were up. This was summertime, and some people had seen a bear walking along the lane, one lane down from us, while they were out walking, and it had scared them. They had told Richard and his wife about the bear. That happens, you know, especially if you're walking around early morning or dusk, or right before dusk. Yeah, sure, you can see bears. So if you want to not see them, don't walk at those times. And don't walk quietly. Always have a bell on somebody. Make noise. Anyway, she couldn't handle it. And then Richard, he started wearing a gun because a bear was walking right near him right when he was doing something or another. And another time he saw the cougar just leap between our two cabins to head up into the forest. And that was enough for him. He sold. And of course his wife would never come up. Apparently she really meant it. It was about 2 years later that he sold. Isn't this pretty? Hopefully y'all can see some of that. And it took a while for their cabin to be purchased. And I, you know, hearing all these people, I thought, you know, I'm going to put up some signs. So I put some signs, nailed them to trees on my property that said, bear and cougars live here. I thought, I'm going to put it out there because I wasn't up at the cabin except for on weekends. Bear and cougars live here. Cougar territory. Dangerous wild animals. You know, I wanted people, whoever's going to buy that cabin next, I don't want them to buy it to then freak out when they find out what hangs out around here. Well, the next people to buy it are really nice people. I like them. They're in their 50s. Oh, look, trash. That's terrible. From El Paso and totally in love with the mountains. Did not freak out over bears and cougars.